Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie. As always, thank you so much for being with me here today to listen to me go through this podcast. Thank you to all my subscribers, everybody who watches, likes my videos, and a special thanks to my members and anyone who has supported my channel by buying me a coffee, sending me a super, or in any way, shape, or form. If you've supported my channel, thank you so much. Now, before we start, I want to show you my little shop that I have managed to get up and running. And there's a few things on it now. I'm going to be adding to it all the time. I'm taking on board all your suggestions, and you'll see there'll be lots more things will go on there with lots more different slogans. And I can really almost, if you tell me something in particular, a slogan you want or something you want, I can try and source it. So let me know. Any input, again, is welcome, because this is a completely new thing for me. It's been very complicated, but I think I might have managed it now, so I'm quite happy about it. So I just want to give you a little look at it. I think I've solved this problem about oops, I'm on the wrong one. I think I've solved the problem about because some people had gone on there and said you couldn't put in a what's the word, a British postcode, because it was only accepting, I think, Spanish postcodes. So that's what's made it sort of so difficult, is because, being in Spain and then wanting to sell things in different countries, people should be able to order. Anyway, it's been very complicated, but I think it's more or less resolved now. So to cut a long story short. So let's have a look. I think this is it. Yeah, so let's go home, to the home. So again, I want to sort of make that bit better, but I don't really know how to do it. So far we've got mugs on there, some magnets, fridge magnets, spiral notebook, stemless wine glass. I think there's and a sweatshirt. Now these are all Canadian prices, because I was looking to see if it worked in Canada. But I think, so you go along you put in whatever. I think with you, it will probably come up automatically where you are. And then you will, I think it will anyway. I don't know. So you go on it on your computer or whatever you do, seems to know where people are. Or if it doesn't come up as your country, you would go up here and press the thing. But anyway, so I just wanted to let you know that it is working. And the other thing I just wanted to tell you about, again, I did mention it the other day, but this friend of mine who has helped me a lot with everything. And I've ordered a Christmas jumper from them, which I've got coming, and I showed it you the other day. And, I will put the link to this website again when I find it. I will put the link to this website again. Whoops, got to find it. No. Oops, should have been a bit more prepared with this. Anyway, the link will be there. Oh, why did I not have it ready? Oh no. Sorry, I'm probably driving you mad here. Right. I'm determined now to find it. Aha, there it is. Gosh, I could have found it so easily. But anyway, so yes, I just want to show you this shop. Just for, please go and have a look at it, and it just helped my friend out. They've been very helpful to me with helping me with designs and getting the shop up and running. So I'd just like to repay the favour to them. So yes, maybe you can try and guess which Christmas sweatshirt I've got coming, because I have ordered one. There were so many that I thought were nice. But they do all sorts of things, not only things for Christmas, but also things for people who like horses, aprons, men's t-shirts, hoodies, unisex, you name it, they do it. So I think it helps them out if you just go on there and have a look, and that you can put your email in there and subscribe to the site. You know, that would just help my friend out, and I just want to say to them thank you for how they've helped me out. But yes, so I have a Christmas sweatshirt on the way, one of these. Anyway, you'll see it soon enough. 1st of December, I will start wearing it. Because, in December, we've got exciting things. You know, I'm going to try and make December as fun as you can make true crime, of course. But, you know, even though we're discussing serious subject, there's no reason why we shouldn't, you know, have some fun as well, because the world's a scary place, and especially at the moment, there's so much hate and everything. Well, of course, on Thursdays in the members live, we always have a little bit of fun. At the moment, I'm collecting photos of people's pets. So that is now so at the end of December, I'm going to show them all in a special video. But if you now want to send me in any photos of your pets, whichever kind of pets they are, you know, I've got some really interesting ones. It's not only your dogs and your cats, etc. So please send in photos of your pets with their names to vickymariechats@gmail.com, and remember, it's Vicky with an I. Okay, so let's get on now with listening to this podcast. So lately, as far as the Nicola Bulley case is concerned, I've been listening to various podcasts from sort of back in the day, if you like, before the inquest, some of them before Nicola was even found. And they've given us some very interesting perspectives, haven't they? Because when you look at these podcasts with the benefit of hindsight, it's really quite interesting. Or I think it is anyway, and you all seem to have found it's interesting too. So we're going to look at another one today, which I thought was quite interesting. Somebody sent me, and this is, I think it's Talk TV Radio, whatever that means. And it's an interesting one, especially, it's only a short one. But what I found it, even just the description of it, police forces don't really work well with outsiders. They don't work well together. Former Detective Chief Inspector Mick Neville suggests petty squabbling between parts of the police, along with outside organisations, could risk hampering the search for Nicola Bulley. Well, we remember that, don't we? With Peter Folding, there was a definite sort of irritation by the police almost, which is, I sort of can see it and not see it. I mean, obviously, did they sort of look on it as if Peter was, or not Peter, or whoever brought Peter in, was saying that they weren't competent enough, or they weren't searching hard enough? But couldn't they have utilised Peter in a better way? You know, and of course, it was a total failure because he didn't find anything. And then she popped up in the river later on. So, you know, this is what leads a lot of us to not really believe the official narrative on this, because we cannot understand why the amount of people, if what the police were saying about was true about the way that river was being searched, small river with little flow. If it was true that they had all this volume of people out looking, especially on the first day, when really, if you believe that she just fell into the river there or jumped into the river or whatever you believe, according to the inquest, we're supposed to believe that she just fell into the river by accident. She should have been right there. Everybody sort of knows that, I think, just by any professional explanations of what happens when people fall in water, etc. So that's what's caused the problem. And then Peter Folding was brought in and he didn't find her either. So, we, of course, were left, all of us, including the family, including Paul Ansell, everyone said she was not in the river. And then lo and behold, up she popped. So let's hear what they've got to say on here.
Former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector Mick Neville also joining us in the studio. Mick, you're a forensics expert. You've been monitoring this story very closely. Very simply, what do you make of it so far?
It's a very tragic case, and I feel for the family. And there's several possibilities. Of course, the police believe she went into the water. She could have also decided to vanish herself. And then there's the possibility she was either taken by force by somebody who either didn't know her or somebody who she did. They're the four things the police will be looking for.
Now, see what he says. They're the four things the police will be looking for. So it's the possibility she fell in the river, the possibility she just went off on her own volition, the possibility that she was taken by someone she didn't know, or the possibility she was taken by somebody she did know. He said those are the four. Let's just listen to that again, because of course these aren't the possibilities the police were
vanish
looking
herself. Tragic case, and I feel for the family. And there's several possibilities. Of course, the police believe she went into the water. She could have also decided to vanish herself. And then there's the possibility she was either taken by force by somebody who either didn't know her or somebody who she did. They're the four things the police will be looking for. And they seem to be going on the theory that she fell into the river. But from what they're saying, it would seem that Lancashire Police are not putting all their eggs in one basket. They are examining several possibilities. As we heard in the report there, they're looking for dash cam footage. They're looking into this red van, this sighting. So I think Lancashire Police are doing a good job at the moment. There has been some mistakes along the way, but they're doing a good job.
Let's pull up the inside pages of The Sun, in fact, because that running the story of this hunt for, quote, the shabby red van at the scene. We remind ourselves of the press conference given by the police officers at Lancashire Constabulary just a few days ago, where they were sort of calling on members of the public who may have been on holiday at the time to cast your mind back. And somebody has cast their mind back and said they remember a strange-looking van. But, I mean, amongst hundreds of lines of inquiry.
So this red van, did they ever find it and identify it? I mean, what... I'm a bit mystified about the red van, because I don't really remember this from the beginning, to be honest. And I know a lot of you do, because a lot of you have made comments. And I just want to say, if I don't reply to you, there've been a lot of comments, and I've been setting up the shop. I haven't had time to reply to everybody's comments recently. I'm sorry about that. Please don't think that I'm ignoring you. But sometimes I just literally do not have time when there's a big volume. Now, what I want to say is, though, I can see from the scan reading that I've done of the comments that a lot of you did know about this. It was said it was a van that somebody could sleep in at some point or live in, that sort of van. But what was the resolution of it? Because I know that Rebecca, I know they sort of in the end poo-pooed it, but did they actually find the van and eliminate it from the enquiries? Or was it like the fisherman and the man in black and everybody else, that they never came forward, but they still got eliminated from the enquiries? So this is just what I'd quite like to know. What was the resolution of that inquiry? Did they find the owner of the van and they eliminated from the enquiries, or did they just decide that people had imagined this red van or something. Like they seem to think people had imagined screams and a man in black.
Harry, Mick, I mean, when you're a police officer, how do you sift through these inquiries?
It is very difficult. I mean, what they do, I mean, it's better now in the sense of, since 10 years ago, we've got dash cam footage, you've got ring doorbells. So of course, Wayne Couzens was caught with the ring doorbell footage. So there's lots of digital devices there that can really help the police and pinpoint. But it's sometimes sifting through to find that one thing. I mean, when I was investigating a murder, you know, the family used a medium who thought that the guy had been put in the boot of a car. So you have to check the boots of a car. And in the end, he had been in the boot of a car, but you just simply don't know. Amongst all those thousands of pieces of information, there could be a critical one there.
Now,
it's interesting, isn't it? And actually, what you're just saying there, this is completely, sorry, I am going away from the case completely, but I think you might be interested in this. A friend of mine who works for a car hire company had told me that once there was a car that was out on hire, and that it just kept, whenever the hire period came to an end, they would just rent it out again. The people rent it out again and rent it out again. And it went on and on. Anyway, the result of it was finally there was actually a body in the boot of this car. And the person that had murdered whoever it was, I mean, this is a long time ago. It's before I was really into true crime. Now I'd be wanting to make a video about it, because I don't even know the name, you know, I don't remember the names now. And it was probably, well, it was at least 10 years ago, if not maybe more, maybe even 15 years ago. But I always remember them telling me about it, because the police actually obviously came to to their offices, you know, when this all came out and that, and said, you know, this car, that it's one of your cars that's been rented out for, I don't know, I don't know this for certain because I don't remember the details, but let's imagine 6 months this car had been rented out for. And the reason for that is there was a body in the back. Just interesting. I mean, boots are a common place where people put bodies. You know, that's what people do. They put bodies in boots.
Missing people's cases common, we know that much, but how often do people really vanish without a trace? That's, I think, what's captured people's interest here.
Absolutely. I mean, I was in charge of the missing persons unit at Lambeth, so we had hundreds, thousands of people go missing each year. Most turn up within a couple of hours. You know, there's a few cases, if you look back over the last few decades, Claudia Lawrence, simply vanished, Madeleine McCann, mostly women or girls who've gone missing. And so there's very, very few people vanish without a trace. I mean, one case that I'm really mindful of here is a sad case of Anthony Knott, who was a fireman who by whatever means, fell into the river in Sussex in 2020. He was found 21 days later and 8 miles down the river, so downstream. So I don't know about this expert who's saying that the people are usually quite close. I know there's a weir blocking it, but I'm sure there's an expert on rivers who could tell us how long somebody's
Well, that was interesting. Who was that he was talking
rivers who could, but actually, and Claudia, most turn up within a couple of hours. You know, there's a few cases, if you look back over the last few decades, Claudia Lawrence, simply vanished, Madeleine McCann, mostly women or girls who've gone missing. And so there's very, very few people vanish without a trace. I mean, one case that I'm really mindful of here is a sad case of Anthony Knott, who was a fireman.
Anthony Knott. I'm going to look that up in a moment, because, you know, as I just said, and now most experts say that if somebody falls into the river or into water and they drown in that, if they drown there and then, not if, you know, they swim off or whatever, that they're generally found where they're put, remember, according to Emma. Now this guy is talking about another case.
Who by whatever means, fell into the river in Sussex in 2020. He was found 21 days later and 8 miles down the river, so downstream. So
21 days later, 8 miles down the river. See, I don't know which river it is. I've got to look him up. I will in a minute.
I don't know about this expert who's saying that the people are usually quite close. I know there's a weir blocking it, but I'm sure there's an expert on rivers who could tell us how long somebody's how far somebody would move. And the sad thing is here is that the police are now at the estuary in the sea. So if the body enters the sea, it literally could be gone forever. And the tragedy of a family, let's hope she's been abducted and she turns up, or she's disappeared of her own and she turns up alive and well, and the children have got a mother. But if she did go in the water and she goes into the sea, that is a really bad thing, because that is a vast area to try and ever find someone.
Well, of course, they did look at that in one point, didn't they? Supposedly, they went up to Morecambe Bay and started looking around there. But of course, Nicola did not go that far from, she did not go into the sea. She was she was found not that far away, really, but she will have had to have gone over the weir.
Indeed, a horrendous state of affairs. When we're saying the best case scenario is that she's abducted and she's going to turn up well and good. But I hear what you're saying there. Let's talk about, you mentioned there some underwater experts. We were talking about this earlier in the show. We've spoken to some over the past week. What is this interplay between police forces and outside experts? Talk to us about how that works and whether it works.
It doesn't work very well. In my experience, I work with academics on my specialist area, which was super recognisers and CCTV. And there's a real reticence amongst colleagues. Why are you doing this? Why are you disclosing information?
Now, that's interesting, because that fascinates me. Have you heard of these super recognisers? I'm going to do a video on that because I think you'll find it really interesting. So the police actually enlist the help of super recognisers. These are people who can see a face and remember it, instantly. I thought I was good at remembering faces and that, and I went on and did the super recogniser test. Because you can do it online, and it's very difficult. It's much more difficult. I thought I had a good memory for faces, but it just shows you how difficult the police's job is, because when they're dealing with witnesses, and this gets harder and harder as time goes on. Even just after an incident, people don't remember. People describe things that happened that actually didn't happen, or give false descriptions of people, or, false descriptions of events, not deliberately, genuinely. They believe that what they're saying is true. But so these super recognisers are used by the police at important events because they don't forget anybody's face, and they can pick people out, and they've helped identify, with the Manchester Arena bombing. There was a guy who was falsely trying to help people while at the same time actually robbing them. And he was identified by super recognisers, etc. It's a very interesting thing. I think you'd be interested in that. We'll look at that in another video.
Particularly if you disclose information that the police aren't doing so well. And police forces don't really work well with outsiders, and they don't work well together. There's like petty squabbling into force. There'll be petty squabbling within a force, within the different units. And sometimes it really lets the public down. And I just think if we've got experts coming in, the police are not full of experts who know about underwater river movements and things. Why not bring somebody in who really knows?
Exactly. It's like the Fitbit and things. There can't be experts in everything. Otherwise they'd have to, in one police force. Now, my idea was that they could have a central police expert on Fitbits, couldn't they? Could have one expert who goes around the whole country offering their expertise, particularly on Fitbits, but they don't do that. So in each force, so you've got Lancashire Police, they've got their digital expert, who we could see is not a digital expert at all. He's probably totally out of touch, because digital things as well, all that stuff changes so quick, especially in this day and age. So he wasn't an expert. We had PC Thackeray go in that bloody river, and he had to practically climb over the weir, and he's nothing like Nicola either. He's trying to show how she would have floated along the river, and she would have done. He's this big lumbering guy. He was just wading through that river, so it wasn't a genuine, but we could have like a central point where the experts were, and they were loaned out to all different forces, surely, because instead of relying on people. Anyway, so I think what he's saying here then is, because you can't have all these experts within a police force, why not ask, enlist the help of someone like Peter Falding? And of course, Peter Falding was on the list to help, wasn't he? So, but it's interesting what he says, isn't it? I can imagine that, because, you'll get a police force, and not only they'll be arguing with outsiders like Peter Falding or irritated by them, they'll be bickering within themselves as well. It's terrible, really, isn't it? Because they need to, at the end of the day, they've got one job, and that's to serve the public. And they should all be united in that, not in their own careers.
And like I say, we see with the Ian Huntley case, 2 police forces not sharing information. The Yorkshire Ripper case, it's as bad as that. Police forces squabbling and not looking at the overall picture, just really caring about who's going to be seen in the best lights.
And let's just finish by talking a little bit about the constabulary's demands or requests about limiting speculation, limiting press focus on this. I realise the irony of talking about this on television right now, but can you understand that from the investigation point of view?
Well, what the police don't want is a load of false leads. They want good information, and that's why they don't want ghouls going watching and hindering, and they do want people to help, but they don't want ghouls watching. But I think there's real opportunities here. When I discussed with your research about the digital evidence that.
Just wondering, then how do you differentiate? You don't want ghouls watching, but they want information. That they've got to be clearer about what information they want and what they will allow people to do. And it still goes back to what I've said right from the beginning. They did not cordon off that area. So if you do not cordon off an area, of course people are going to turn up. Cordon off the area, people won't turn up, or they might turn up, but they've got to stay outside the cordon. Manage it, for goodness sake. It's up to the police to manage it, not the public.
It's available now with all the CCTV, drones, all these things can be, iPhones, iWatches. They'll be looking into all computers to see what people's intentions were, where they went. And I think the key thing is it's easy now to prove what somebody says. So 20 years ago, if a partner or a friend said, look, I've had nothing to do with this, I was in my house at the time, it was hard to prove. Now, because we've got Alexas and home CCTV and digital devices, it's very easy to say we can absolutely prove this person was in this place at that time. So the digital world really gives the police a lot of opportunities around this case. But
yeah, it's interesting because, if we're critical of maybe Paul or, anybody else being involved, you presume that the reason that the police said initially they'd cleared the partner, they've never really released to us, why he was cleared. And, there's no point in them just saying, no, it's nobody's business. People need to know things like that, because then otherwise they're going to create, because they don't understand why he has been cleared. And how is it because he wasn't seen leaving the house? Is there any way that he could have left the house without being seen on CCTV? Why have they not released the whole CCTV? I don't understand that. Why haven't they released the whole CCTV from when they left the house that morning? Paul going back into the house, Nicola driving off. We've just got this one sort of still image or a couple of still images. I don't understand that. Why they haven't just released. It'd only be a couple of minutes, wouldn't it? Block out the children, them loading the car, the kids and Willow into the car, Paul going back into the house, and Nicola driving off, and they have never released that. Just seems really odd to me.
I just hope she turns up well and the children see their mother again.
We all do. Mick, thank you very much for walking us through that. Let's bring Ed into the conversation now. Thank you, Ed, for standing by, talking about that. And any comments you have from watching this? There has been comments about the way police communications have been handled in this case, but ultimately it seems the consensus is just let them get on with the job of investigating.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at the comments made by the civilian diver, who seemed to be giving quite extensive interviews while actively involved in the search. I mean, obviously, if you want, experts can come on telly and give their view, but I think if you're actively involved in the search, I was quite surprised that he kind of gave a running commentary, and some of it, frankly, was pretty graphic. And if you were a friend of Nicola Bulley or a member of her family, I'm not sure it would be that appreciated. Having said that, I gather it's the family that encouraged the civilian diver to be used. And I've got no problem at all with calling in outside experts, particularly when it's such a kind of extraordinary case like this. You want the very best in the business to help the police in this kind of search. So you're right about it gripping the country, because nobody can quite work out what's happened. And it does seem, with all these cases, when they get a huge amount of media coverage, we all become kind of experts overnight. My bit of
Thank you. So it's because of the media coverage that it had, and because of the fact it was such a mystery. It's not rocket science to understand why people were so fascinated with Nicola's case, because of exactly of that. It was drummed down our throats day in, day out in all the mainstream media, and it was such a big mystery, and it still is. That's why people are interested, and people genuinely want to know what happened to Nicola, or justice for Nicola, or it's a genuine. I see it every day from the comments I get and the emails I get. Nobody's a ghoul. People genuinely feel that something wrong happened to Nicola, and it's not been explored properly, and it's not been resolved, that there's more to this. The welfare check on the 10th, all these things, probably most of you, there'll be some of you out there perhaps are just new to this case, in which case need to look over the playlist for Nicola Bulley, because this is, it's been a massive case. It's really all started in January, February, and it's still rumbling on, because we do not accept that Nicola. So the official verdict at the inquest was accidental death, but there was no evidence whatsoever for that, and people feel uncomfortable with it, but not the family, apparently.
Of expertise, as in my layman's question to people who know better, would be, presumably the police think she fell in the water because there are no signs of a struggle. I mean, the only alternative, there are three options, aren't there? That she has disappeared herself, she's fallen in the water, or somebody has taken her. And I would have thought if she'd been taken, there would be scuff marks, whatever, something would have.
Would there be scuff marks? I mean, if she was actually taken, because she was only little and she was slight, and she would be quite easily picked up, of course. I don't know that happened. Personally, I don't think it did. I don't think she was there. I still think that, or that's, if I had to give, I think, to me, there are two possibilities. Either she was never there, or she was there. And if she was there, I think it may have been herself who did it, but it would have been because of, I do think there were some issues at home and that. So anyway, I don't know for sure, so I can't say. All I do feel, let's say, is there's more to this than meets the eye, just like a lot of you out there do.
Landed on the ground. I can't believe there wouldn't be evidence. And I guess in terms of police communication, you would expect the police to kind of elaborate.
And also, he said, I can't believe there won't be evidence, but it wasn't cordoned off. So there may have been evidence, but bear in mind, then everybody was trampling through it. The police, everyone. They just said that, they said that all the mainstream media were there, the police were there, they reckon all these TikTok ghouls were there. So if that wasn't cordoned off, and they never checked for evidence. So there may have been evidence at one point, but just not after.
On why they've settled on this one theory, because by definition, they would have ruled out other plausible alternative.
Exactly. Is you either have a void of information which allows speculation to ferment, or you pin something, is, as you say, without elaborating on why. And that again leads to speculation. But what's astonishing, I think, so far is, as you've described, this sort of theatre of ghouls, I think you called it there, Mick. You know, influencers, people going down. The police have had to have special orders to be able to disperse these people who are trying to get selfies on the bench from where Nicola was supposedly gone missing.
I just go back to the fact, why didn't they cordon off the area? They didn't want people there doing stuff like that. Why did they not cordon off the area?
This must be more of a modern phenomenon.
Yes, it is. I mean, so you can see that the digital world, it helps and hinders us in the sense that the police, you know, with the investigation, they've tightened it down to a 10-minute window because of the Zoom calls, the phone calls, what people saw, CCTV, and that's
10 minutes is a long, long time. Shall I just sit here and be quiet for 10 minutes? You think about how much can happen in 10 minutes. You know, they keep talking about 10 minutes as if it's not a long time, but it actually is a long time. A lot of things can happen in 10 minutes.
Sort of thing. But on the other side of the coin, you've got these awful people who want to turn up and see these, you know, take selfies on the bench, and it's completely unacceptable because everything they're doing is hindering. And that the one point I would make about the bench, that seems to be the only real mistake that the police made, that wasn't sealed off so quickly. Because it was mostly with most missing persons affairs, you can see very quickly the person comes back. In this one, within an hour or two, they must have realised this is a really serious, something wrong here. You've got somebody who's...
Exactly. You know, it's the police's fault. It's not the public's fault. You know, nearly always, even when they suspect self-deletion, they cordon off the area. They don't want the public coming across a body hanging in a tree or a body at the edge of the river. They don't want the public to find somebody who's done something to themselves. So even if they didn't suspect it was foul play, that should have been cordoned off. It's a massive mistake that they made in my eyes, and they've been on the back foot ever since. They cocked up everything. They allowed Paul, whatever, you know, I'm not saying Paul had anything to do with that. I'm saying they allowed Paul to take the phone back, take the dog back. Nothing was checked. I mean, sometimes I wonder, did they even take any photos of the scene or whatever? Because we don't know, because we haven't seen them. So I think they just made this assumption immediately that Nicola had thrown herself into the river or fallen into the river. But even assuming that, they should have cordoned off the area. Imagine if a member of the public then had found her, like, you know, if they were so worried about TikTokers being there, they didn't cordon off the area so some TikToker could have just gone and taken a photo of her or whatever. Please, what's wrong with them? And then they cannot blame it on everybody else. I think that there's something wrong with the way. I don't believe in a police cover-up, not for you know, badness, like, but I think there may be a bit of a cover-up for incompetence.
Completely vanished, left the phone. There doesn't seem to be any background of anything why she should go missing, and it should have flagged up straight away. And that bench wasn't.
Bearing in mind, he didn't know then about the welfare check, or that the first words out of Paul's mouth when Anne-Marie Fletcher called him was, well, she's been struggling. You know, he's saying there's no reason why anyone should ever think that she's gone missing. But Paul did say that virtually immediately, didn't he?
Sealed off. And that's the only thing, if you look around, that possibly could yield finger marks, DNA, if at all. So that's possibly an opportunity missed. And as I say, not to just somehow try and sweep in from the sea. And if the body has gone, and as I've described the tragic case of Anthony Knott, we don't want it to go into the sea. As
we head into the break, let's take a look at the front page of The Sun, which has just come.
Now, he's just said if the body has gone. So this is February the 12th. So she hadn't been found yet, deceased. So that was, he's just assumed. Everybody's talking about her as if she's already gone, aren't they? You know, it's like, and that with releasing the information about her vulnerabilities and her medical records, they all thought she had gone. Nobody was expecting her to come back.
Come into us. Also running with this Nicola Bulley story on the front page, Nicola Cops search sea. You can see the boat there out at sea, just what Mick Neville was describing to us. And the inside page we showed you earlier, that was an exclusive from The Sun, this hunt for the shabby red van at the scene.
Oh yeah, The Sun, the mainstream media who are criticising all the social media, running a story every 30 seconds. Okay, so that was an interesting podcast. I think these are always interesting, these ones that I've not heard before, to hear different views that I've not heard before. Now, I want to look, what he mentioned there was Anthony Knott, who was a 33-year-old father of 4 from Orpington, Kent, and he disappeared on December the 20th. Let's have a look. We'll go into one of these. Oops. So this was from his inquest. So a firefighter whose body was found in Sussex died accidentally due to drowning, an inquest has heard. Anthony Knott's body was tragically removed from the River Ouse by Denton Island in New Haven on the morning of January the 10th. The 33-year-old who was from Orpington in Kent, had been missing for 3 weeks, so similar time to Nicola, after vanishing while he was out on a Christmas work night with his London Fire Brigade colleagues in Lewes on Friday, December the 20th. What an awful Christmas his family must have had. Anyway, an inquest heard that the young father had drunk alcohol and used cocaine on the night he went missing. Dear me. Due to his body being in water for a significant amount of time, a meaningful toxicology report was not possible. What? So does that mean that they never mentioned that in Nicola's inquest, that he'd been in the water for a significant amount of time, a meaningful toxicology report was not possible? You know, this case, it just gets weirder and weirder. You know, honest to God, it's very wearing, because we don't know because they don't release inquest results. Even the inquest results are mysterious, and anyway, further toxicology tests requested by Mr. Knott's family, requested by the family. But why have the family got to do their own? Why is it the family have to do their own investigating? Anyway, found that Mr. Knott had used cocaine, likely in a few to several hours before he died. So I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Was also discovered, which indicated the consumption of alcohol prior to his death, the inquest was told. Now, of course, Nicola was found to have no alcohol apart from the normal amount that you'd have from being in the water. Anyway, the concentration was low, indicating recreational use, but due to his body being in water for 3 weeks, this concentration may have been different at the time of his death, the inquest heard. A very low quantity of sertraline, an antidepressant, was also found. So his primary cause of death was confirmed as drowning in salt water. Is the River Ouse salt water? Anyway, the coroner, James Healy Pratt, recorded a conclusion of accidental death. Now, you can see that more than with Nicola, that because of the time, it was late at night, he'd been drinking, you can understand that conclusion better. There's no evidence it was with anybody else. So you understand how a conclusion of accidental death might be reached there. Anthony was on a Christmas night out with colleagues and started drinking at lunchtime locally. before they made their way down from South London to Lewes, where they continued their festivities. Mr. Knott left the Lamb pub at 7:30 p.m. after consuming about 8 or 9 drinks, and toxicology reports that the family paid for, because also found he had taken some cocaine as well. He left the pub and was last seen on CCTV at 7:44 p.m. near Subway sandwich shop by East Street. Sufficient evidence to me is that Mr. Knott was probably quite intoxicated. We don't know the reason he went towards the river, but somehow he got into difficulties by walking close to the river, which was flooded at that time in December 2019, and he wasn't able to extricate himself. He drowned in the river and was swept down the stream. And it's a very sad story, isn't it? Because he had 3 children as well, but he may have deleted himself, but there's no proof that he did. There's no proof of any third-party involvement, because he was seen on his own on the CCTV. So I can see why they've recorded accidental death, because he was drunk as well. So, I do understand that. This court doesn't have any evidence to suggest why he fell in the river or went towards the river during the course of the night out. So I'm presuming that he had or he was taking a small amount of tablets for depression, I suppose. Anyway, it was a night out that went tragically wrong just before Christmas. How awful. We don't fully know the reasons why Mr. Knott fell into the river. All we can do on behalf of the court and myself is extend our condolences to Mr. Knott's family and his children. Detective Inspector Mark Rosser provided the evidence with a report detailing the events leading up to when Mr. Knott was last seen. We gathered CCTV and there were a couple of sightings. The first, him leaving the Lamb pub in Lewes alone at 7:30 p.m. and then walking towards East Street and the River Ouse at 7:44. The CCTV was not great and it was dark, but we're fairly confident this was him. The court doesn't have any evidence to suggest why he fell in the river or went towards the river. Oh, that's just repeat. Have I just gone back upwards? Sorry. A large-scale search operation was launched to find Mr. Knott. Police were assisted by East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service, London Fire Brigade and the RMLI. D.I. Rosser said, officers came to the conclusion that Mr. Knott left the Lamb pub and had got into an accident, either medically or due to being intoxicated. He told the inquest, due to there being no movement on his financial banking and his mobile phone had gone off, we were quite confident that there was no other information to suggest any third-party involvement or any history of depression. Statements from his colleagues were read out at the inquest. His line manager said everyone was in good spirits. They were laughing and joking. He had a close relationship with Mr. Knott, like father and son. He referred to him as Knotty. He said he did get upset with him. He was upset during a meeting with him once. He was withdrawn and a bit quieter, he said, and had discussed his mother-in-law being admitted to hospital, and his father-in-law had passed away recently. Mr. Wilson Hockley, he left the Lamb pub with his wife, who he'd met earlier. He did not recall seeing Mr. Knott, but assumed he'd gone to the toilet. He didn't think anything of it. And the following day, Saturday, December the 21st, he received a text saying Mr. Knott had not returned home. I was really worried. It was out of character and unexpected of Knotty. He went to Lewes to help with the search. He was aware that Mr. Knott was leading a healthier lifestyle. He'd cut back on energy drinks and was going to the gym. Another colleague described him as a cheeky chap and good-natured. He referred to him as Tone, and he said he was his normal, happy self on the Christmas night out. Where he said when he heard he had not returned home after the night out, he was not concerned and presumed he was at a mate's house. At the end of the inquest, East Sussex coroner James Healy-Pratt acknowledged the extensive efforts of the emergency services. So that's the story. That's what the guy in the podcast was alluding to. I've not heard of that before. I don't remember reading about it. Anthony Knott, rest in peace, Anthony. And it was the inquest brought an accidental death. Now, he may have gone there to do, because the thing, you know, I know that people who seem all happy and jolly aren't necessarily happy and jolly. And funny enough, that story reminds me of a friend of mine who shortly after my ex-partner self-deleted, her ex-husband did exactly the same thing as Anthony. He went out with friends from work. They all said he seemed in really good spirits. And funny enough, he had just sorted his life out. It's quite a long story, but he'd, while they were married and they had a little boy together, he was arrested. He worked for a catalogue company, and he was taking money for products from this catalogue. You know, catalogues certainly in Manchester in the north. So you got the catalogue man comes round, you pick something out the catalogue, and you pay weekly for it, you know, to distribute the cost. Jewelry, those sort of things, anything that you want but you can't really afford. So you would say you buy a ring for £60 and you pay the catalogue man £10 a week, and when it was paid for you would get the ring. Or the other way around, you might get the ring and then pay the ring first and then pay the catalogue man. But basically it's the catalogue man that you're paying the money to, and they come round to your house. And he was doing that, but he was pocketing the money. Anyway, got caught out. I don't know the full ins and outs about how he got caught, but he did. And it wasn't just one person who was doing to it. I think it was about £20,000 in total that he'd sort of. And the thing that my friend was really upset about was that people thought she must have known about it. But she said, we never saw any of, you know, it wasn't that it was coming home buying extra things. Or so we wondered if he may have been gambling, because there was no sign of that extra money in their household. You know, he wasn't coming home with a present for his son or buying her something nice. Or it was, she said, we were just struggling as always. But this money, he had this money. So we did wonder if he might have been gambling. Anyway, he went to prison. He was in prison. He was sentenced, not a long sentence, but a brief sentence. And she divorced him. And it was heartbreaking for her because she was virtually accused with him. Everybody thought that she must have known something about it, and she had no idea. So anyway, she did divorce him while he was in prison, but she still carried on going to see him because they had a son together. She would take it. She said all he ever did in prison was complain about, oh, he didn't have this and he didn't have that. And she would take him stuff in like toothbrushes and toothpaste and stuff, and, you know, little luxuries, because she's a nice person like that, even though he was a twonk, the way he treated her in many ways. But anyway, so he came out of prison. He got a job because he was a butcher by trade. So that's where they'd met, both working in the same place where she was working on a different place, but he was working on the butcher's counter. That's where they'd met. So that was his trade. So he got a job quite quickly because he got a job from one of these some employers, they get like some tax breaks and things if they take on ex-convicts, you know. So they said what had happened. He'd got a job immediately. He got a job. He was working at a butcher's. He had a new girlfriend. Everything seemed to be going brilliantly for him. He went out. That might have even been a Christmas night out. I'm not sure if it was a Christmas night out, but it was a night out very similar to that one. And he deleted himself. And my friend, she had to go and identify his body, which was awful. Anyway, she's okay now. I mean, this was a long time ago. And, you know, she's since married again. I'm not in touch with her anymore, unfortunately. I lost her contact details, but she's still in Manchester. I was in contact with her really until I came to Spain. So what I'm trying to say is not everybody that's out on a night out chatting, laughing, etc. is having, you don't know what's going on in their mind, do you? You know, now I'm not saying that's what Anthony did. May well have been a tragic accident, but it just seems, why was he even by the river? But anyway, it was found accidental death. I can see why they found it accidental death, because there's no other reason to suspect. It's not the mystery that Nicola's was. I mean, I'd be interested to see where his phone was. Did he put it, you know, because I don't think you'd think of putting your phone on a bench. You know, if you were going to do something to yourself, why would you do? Anyway, never mind. We don't know that. Yeah, I'm not saying that Nicola did do something to herself. So it's interesting, isn't it? So the last thing I just wanted to show you before I finish, or talk to you about before I finish, is on Twitter. I saw a post that's come from, let me just see. It's quite an old, it's from an American, I should go find it now. I thought I had it there, hang on. Right, okay, so it's a government report. It's quite an old one and it's from America, but doesn't take away the relevance of it. So it's from the US Department of Justice, from the Office of Justice Programs, and it was in July 2007. But basically what this person is saying, officers, so in order to alert investigating officers to the signs of suspicious drowning deaths, because I don't know if you know, drowning is one of the most difficult murder, you know, to prove that it's murder, because some drownings are murders, but to prove it is harder. Obviously, if somebody's got a knife sticking out of them, or, you know, they've been shot, it's easy to prove that they've been murdered. But with drowning, it's very difficult. So it says, this article identifies common misconceptions about drowning and the various types of drowning deaths, and it presents guidelines that assist officers in understanding the drowning process. So it says, officers who investigate drowning deaths must first give up the assumption that a drowning is an accidental death. All water-related deaths should be investigated as potential criminal events. Investigators should attempt to determine why and how the victim got into the water, what prevented the victim from getting out of the water, any signs of the victim's struggle to prevent going into the water. There was no sign of Nicola going into the water, was there? There's saying about no sign of anyone taking her, but there was no sign of her slipping down the bank either. Any signs of physical trauma that are consistent or inconsistent with drowning? Well, I'd say the bruises were pretty inconsistent. Being familiar with the drowning process will assist the investigation and help detectives recover evidence that might indicate foul play. After describing how death occurs in drowning, the article describes two distinct types of drowning, wet and dry. Wet drowning occurs when the body is predominantly covered in water in the course of death from drowning. Dry drownings, which compose 10 to 20% of all drownings, occur only when the victim's head is pushed into a water container for an amount of time sufficient to cause death from drowning, but the rest of the body remains dry. The article's debunking of drowning myths focuses on what occurs during and after a person drowns. Tips are also presented on how to distinguish drownings that are homicides, suicides, or accidents. So now you can't, I don't know if I can find it. So that's just the introduction to the article. If I find the article, oh, I think I might have found it. I'm not going to go through it now because it'd be too long. Oh no, it's gone, you see. It's strange, isn't it? It's not showing up. No libraries hold this item. That's a shame, isn't it? Because I bet that's a very interesting article. Anyway, maybe I need to look at things like that, investigations about how I expect it's very, very difficult to prove now, to prove that it was accidental or if it was homicide. But I do think the bruises might have had something to do that. But Alison Moore, she was very clear in her view, there was no foul play. So, you know, unless somebody, you know, wants to get, this is the problem. The family have accepted that. So, you know, it's nobody else would be able to ask for an independent view on it or another opinion, second opinion. Okay, so that's it. So I hope you've, hope again this has given you food for thought. These podcasts, that's really all we can do with them. They're just listening to them. It's interesting. It gives us food for thought. And maybe one day something else will come out, hey? Okay, so remember to live and love very carefully, very wisely. And you can even get a mug with that on now. And until I see you again, thank you so much. And I'll see you very soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.